Yeah,
So how are you?
yeah, everything's good, man. It's great to catch up with you. I absolutely love this album.
Oh, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, I mean, I got it stuck in my CD chamber. I still do it old school. I put it in, I drive around, I let the world flow by, and then pull
Nice.
in all the good music. So
Oh,
it's it's good.
okay.
But so first and foremost, before we get into this album, the COVID thing was such a big deal for all of us, but especially the world of musicians. How
Yeah.
did you make it through that time period? And was this an outgrowth of going through that time?
I think for me it was, I mean, obviously COVID was crazy and it just shut down all playing possibilities and all those things. I certainly wrote a lot of music. I have a couple albums worth of music that I need to record that I wrote during that time, and I just practiced a lot. But it was, I guess, just a time to put different effort, my effort into a different thing, instead of performing. Hey,
Yeah.
hold on one sec. I'm sorry, my dog Herman,
Oh, you're fine.
he's
That's
coughing.
awesome.
He's a sick little dude. I'm gonna put him in the other
So
room
yeah,
because
we
he's
were we were just kind of touching on having a bevy of material that you had written during the pandemic.
yeah, yeah. I wrote a lot of stuff that I'll have to bring it to life. I wrote a bass sax concerto. I also wrote a bass clarinet concerto. And both of those are about a half hour long, and they're both for string orchestra. So I'll have to do that. And then I wrote a bunch of big band music that I want to do. So there's a lot of different stuff that happened at that time. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
talk to me about this album. How did this album, how did you conceive of it? How did it come together?
as a baritone player, Harry Carney's been one of the largest influences in my life, and I think just his sound was so tremendous. And I think I've always wanted to do something that was uh something in the vein of where he was coming from, and I started investigating different ways that Duke wrote, and Strayhorn as well wrote for Harry Carney. And that actually, the first concerto that I wrote for baritone was influenced by some of these pieces that we played actually on this album. And it was kind of the investigation as to what Duke had done to utilize that incredibly lush and round sound that Harry Carney had, and using his orchestra to feature the baritone, because really Duke was one of the first to do that, at least in that setting where he was bringing these classical elements as well as jazz, of course, elements into it, and featuring this lower frequency instrument that is usually and for the majority of the time more in a background role. So I think the idea came about 10 years ago to try to emulate some of the ideas that Duke had done, yet trying to do something in my own way. And then I did this concert with this friend of mine named Gregory Hopkins in Boston. And Greg is he's been teaching at Berkeley for 50 years, and he's a great guy, great writer, and he was doing this concert of the sacred music of Duke Ellington. And so when he asked me to do it, I jumped at it and said, "Of course, absolutely." And he introduced me to a couple pieces that I didn't know. And when I started listening to that, it just reignited the flame. And I thought, this is, what if I took these brilliant compositions and reorchestrated them and rearranged them for a woodwind orchestra, so it would achieve a different timbre, yet adhering to the beauty of the original recordings. And I know there's a lot of different takes on taking, I guess, I don't want to call it a cover, that's kind of belittling it, but taking a piece of music and then trying to reharmonize it and trying to redo it. And to me, that seems disrespectful to at least how I could do it. It seems like it would not be right. It's not the right thing to do. These are masterpieces, and I don't want to try to reinvent anything. I just want to uh, explore those sounds that have already been that have been made, but just maybe in a new way, in a different way, but yet adhering to the sonic qualities of what Duke and Strayhorn did. And I consider them, they're along the same thing as Ravel and Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and Handle and all the others. So it's I wanted to do something with exploring the sounds of the instruments, yet uh, paying homage to make it done respectfully and tastefully, and not trying to say anything about let me show you how hip this could be. Let me
Yeah.
make this better. That's not at all what I wanted to do.
Well, there's a lush magic to it. There's a warm feel to it that permeates throughout it. There's a level of it that almost feels timeless. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that's so captivating about this is that you take these masters and you put your spin on it, but you still retain this warm analog glow that you wouldn't think that you could capture in 2024.
Yeah, certainly. And that partly was due to the team of folks that were involved as well, because the gentleman who's producing it with me, John Kilgore, who's a tremendous engineer and producer, who has worked with everyone from Steve Reich and then like all these different Broadway folks, and then a ton of different jazz artists. So he's been around enough that when I talked to him about the project, he was excited and was like, "I have an idea how we could record this to make it sound really." I love the word timeless, as you said, where it does sound like it's been around forever, but it's also brand new, and I think that has to do with him as well, and really um, I learned so much about the process of overdubbing, playing these different instruments, because there was a lot of things that were, I guess, counterintuitive, and working with John Kilgore, the same gentleman, in that process was like I had to really rely on his ears, because on some of the tracks there were 20 woodwinds, and so I'd say, okay, here's flute one, and then I'd lay it down, and John was that cool, and he's like, yeah, but maybe measure 34, try that again, so I was really relying on him, and then we'd layer it and layer it and layer it, and there was all these things where you would imagine if you're playing all these different instruments, you would want them to phrase completely together and have them play perfectly together. But what I realized was that if you do that, it sounds like a computer. And so that I had to actually try to play phrases a little differently, have different speeds of vibrato, have different dynamics changing so it sounded like it was a bunch of different people instead of one person doing it. And that was interesting to see. And John was helpful with that because it was pretty intense.
Yeah. So how did you take this enormous body of work between these musicians and pare it down to a list of songs that you wanted to cover? How did that happen?
I went through I have this CD box set that I got 20 something years ago of Duke, where it's like 35 CDs, and I don't know where, and it's all live bootlegs and this stuff. And I just put that on heavy rotation again and just started listening to all these different tunes and made a list, and I had about, I think, 40 tunes originally, and then just started cutting things down and trying to see what I felt that I could take and make it the I guess the strongest with my tools that possible, I guess. So I just kept kind of whittling that down and trying to figure out which ones would be better. And it ended up being really a lot of ballads, because they're so lush, they're so beautiful. There's the woodwinds sound better with, I guess, this kind of like lush, this tapestry, in opposed to like a brass, like lots of hits, where lots of articulations and pop 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 things. That woodwinds didn't seem like that would work, and so it ended up being where it was just this warm sonic texture that was just all these pieces had uh, together, and that just seemed like the natural way to go. And I think I have an affinity for a lot of these tunes as well, and some of these pieces I've been listening to for since I started listening to music. So it was, but there were other ones like Lotus Blossom, where I had heard it so rarely, but it's such a gem that I thought
Yeah.
this needs to be played.
Yeah. So what are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this? Your interpretation on these masters in a very unique way. What are you hoping they get?
Hope they feel something. I hope it takes them somewhere else for a little while. And for those those few minutes that they listen to it, or for the hour that they listen to it, I hope that it takes them somewhere and they feel like they have gone to a different world for a short amount of time.
Well
And I
said.
think that these some of these tunes are uh, I think the best compliment that I've had from friends were uh, it was is that I'm not even a jazz lover and I like this, and it's kind of funny when people say that, like, I don't like jazz and I love this. It's always kind of funny to me, but I got that from a gentleman, Keith, who actually did all the artwork. Keith Henry Brown is incredible, and he was saying that he was on a road trip with friends that are not jazz. They don't listen to jazz, and he's a jazz. He works with Christian McBride and all these great artists, so he's a heavy jazz lover. But he happened to be on a road trip where he put in this CD, and he said several of the friends that they were with, he played like two tracks and went on to another thing, and both of them said, wait, what was that? What was that? Keep doing that. That was great. I really like that. So he said, oh, okay. So they just listened to the CD on repeat. He said the whole time, and everyone really loved it. And so I think that's, uh, melodies that are this strong are just they almost have like an anthem quality to them because they're just so rich and so strong. So I think I really want people just to be able to hum those melodies and to sing, and like I said, just to take them somewhere else.
Yeah. What are you doing for live music? How are you promoting this and what's going on as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, New York has been tough because the only I was trying to book this where I was hiring a bunch of my friends to play the woodwinds parts live, and then we had a gig, and then that ended up kind of falling through because they wanted to hear exactly what that was, and I said, well, this is the album, so that's, and they were like, well, are these people going to sound just like that? And kind of strange. So it's been tough. I think for me, I'm certainly gonna play this music in wherever my band is playing, but it's hard to get that thickness that we're hearing live without either playing along to tracks, which I don't want to do, and ideally I'll have people play it, but also there is a reality that I don't know many people that play bass flute and contrabass clarinet and bass sax. So the instrumentation, even in New York, was kind of tough. I had folks that I called, and everyone was like, "All right, yeah, I could do that. Can you play bass flute one for this concert? And and who's bass flute two? It's like it was pretty eye opening. I don't think about that stuff. And then when I started booking the show, it was a lot. So
So, if anyone wants to pick this up in the proper way, that's the one thing I think we learned from this whole pandemic is that, there's ways that you can support the artist instead of streaming it. So, if anyone wants to pick this up proper or catch anything that you're doing live, anything going on, how can they do that?
yeah, if all of that's listed on brianlandrus.com, and there's you can buy the CDs, of course. I wanted to make LPs for this, but I don't do I'm not doing that because of the environmental concerns with that. It's There are some sustainable options that are coming out, but as of right now, I haven't found anything that seems right. But I do have CDs available. I have PDFs of scores that are also on my site that you can check out and people can study them. So all of it's through there, and then the performances are listed through there as well.
Right on. Brian, again, I love this album. It's so great to catch up with you. It's been illuminating as usual. Continued success. Keep doing the great work.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your support. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
listening.
Thank you, man. Take care.